Hey there, all my Rotation 411 astrology subscribers. So I know I haven't been on in a minute. I've been quite busy, with the holidays and everything. And I was supposed to come back on. I don't even think I made it public. And we were going to kind of discuss more clearly whole sign versus Placidus. But I need to look into it a little more because I was unclear about a few things because I don't use whole sign that often. So I can't quite remember how it defaults. I know it makes the houses a full 30 degrees. If you're like a 10-degree Libra ascendant, then it just starts your ascendant at 0 degrees or something. That's what I have to clarify. So with that being said, I'm just going to make a few notes here, and then we're going to dive into Pluto entering Aquarius January 20th, 2024. And we'll go through sort of the houses, Aries rising and sun through Pisces rising and sun and how it might affect you. I know for me, my Pluto is Pluto's going to be going into Aquarius, but intercepted in my 5th house. So it's going to take like another 2 to 4 years for him to get into, in my 4th house. So it's going to take him another 2 to 4 years to get into my 5th house, which will be quite interesting as, that's really going to shake up my love life. I'm almost feeling like he might bring children, but we'll see. So with that being said, I was trying to think back because Pluto did briefly enter Aquarius last March through May. And so I was trying to think back to what was like going on in my life at the time or in the collective. But the past year was quite a blur, a lot of big changes. So I know that I did have a screening for a short film that I did. Aquarius rules the 11th house of networking. It rules technology, friend circles, things like that. So I remember going to this screening of mine, and there was a very big Hollywood star. He wanted to come and he couldn't make it, so he sent his brother. And there was a few big, huge producers there. So, if that was a snapshot of what the next 20 years of Pluto in my 5th house in Aquarius is going to bring it on. Maybe I'll get some more YouTube subscribers. With that being said, I want to just quickly make a note because I've been going back and forth on this a lot lately. If you haven't entered divinetimingdatabase.org, I highly suggest you do. We have a few thousand matches in there now. Matches, did I say that? Matches in there, and they are waiting. I've been able to match a few hundred, but I would really like to see like 100,000 people in there this year, if not 1 million, because it's just things like my clients come to me with Mars square Saturn, and they've wasted 5 or 6 years on this romance that's not turned into marriage, or they are married and they are getting divorced. I have actually seen recently 2 marriages that are ending at about 15 years. One's a client, one's a friend that I had mentioned the friend, but it's Mars square Saturn. So, it can make it, but it's not fun, and I was going back and forth on the oppositions because I have seen Mars opposition Saturn in long, long marriages. But of course, the moons were compatible. That's something that I haven't been able to disqualify yet as far as long-term marriages. So the moons are always the first most important thing. And then we look at whether there are any deal breaker or divorce aspects. But I've only seen it with oppositions where, like, I've seen Mars opposition Jupiter make it 25 years. But it was rocky, and it sounded like it'd been rocky for quite some time. Mars opposition Saturn I have seen in a couple married 75 years, but it was an older generation, and they had different values. So in this generation where it's FOMO and there's all these options and all this temptation, I'm just not as sure that the oppositions can work. Recently I dealt with a great relationship, sun on the ascendant, moon in the 7th house, moon on the IC, I think moon and sun on the IC conjunction, sun, trine, Venus, Mars, very tightly. It was like some of the best aspects that you can get. And it's just like Mars opposition Jupiter is, 2 to 4 month fling. So, 2 months in, Jupiter's these higher ideals. Jupiter tells Mars, it's me and you, because they're allies, right? They're buddies against the world. And then Jupiter straight, becomes arrogant and thinks that, they are, Mars is too reckless and rebellious for the crowd, and Jupiter has to hold the higher ideal and go with the crowd after Jupiter just preached to Mars that wasn't the case. So that opposition, maybe the two can work through it, but it just seems like after about 2 to 4 months, especially with the square, it's not going to work. So, you know, there was literally, this was a couple years ago, there was a guy that seemed like a really nice guy, and I looked up our chart and it was Mars square Jupiter, and I just didn't even give him a chance. That's where I'm at with that. The opposition, depending on the other aspects, I would be, you know, I go through the ringer for you guys. So it's not like I'm just sitting here preaching it. I'm living it too. You know, it's like learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to learn. Anyways, so do be hesitant with Mars opposition anything, but square, run for the hills. As soon as you pull up Cafe Astrology and you see that square, Mars square Jupiter, Uranus, even Neptune. My friend's cousin is in a marriage right now that has really good aspects, but they have Mars square Neptune. It might be an opposition, but if it's a square, run. Okay, there's just not going to be any clarity, and it's going to be really hard. All right. Oh, sorry, that fell. I hope that wasn't too loud. So that being said, it's like snowing like a foot today, and it's like 15 degrees out. So, you know, I'm just cozy here in my Sherpa. But okay, we're just going to go ahead and the last thing I'm going to say is divinetimingdatabase.org. Submit if you are single and you haven't already. If you are taken, let people know, because then they don't have to waste 2 months getting bonded to someone to detach. They don't have to waste 4 or 5 years marrying someone and having children to get divorced. It really, I mean, it's just, and also the other big thing about it is we have a bunch of people in there waiting for their matches. So I'm working on automating it right now. I sent out an email today. There's like 3 steps that have to be taken. So eventually divinetimingdatabase.org is going to be where you can literally go on there it would be right now, which it's not this yet. And you can put your birth info in, and you can scan, and it will tell you you have 1 match, you have 5 matches, you know, to meet. So, and then you can decide to go ahead and pay. So it won't be where, like right now, if you go and you submit, you pay the $15, but there's a free service. So you don't have to, like once I match you with someone, which is another thing I've been really busy with lately, is actually manually matching people, because we're working on the automation process. So, you know, now that I have thousands of people in there, I've been spending a lot of time sitting here manually input, you know, I have it streamlined, but manually looking at the charts and matching them, and also taking clients at the same time. So if you submit right now, you're paying that $15, but it's basically for me to sit there and manually do it. And it's also because once you're matched, you get to talk. It's like Talkify, and there's a messenger, like kind of like Facebook Messenger, where when you're comfortable, you can video chat and send pictures and all of that. So with that being said, or you can send pictures now, but you know, before you give out your personal information, like you don't even have to give your name. I mean, if your name is Sally and you want to use Sally at 509, that's fine. But if you want to use, you know, Cynthia, you know, temporarily, and your name's Sally, that's fine as well, because, you know, just I like the discreetness of it, because you also don't know who could be in there. I mean, I have several friends in LA in there, so if you've ever dreamed of moving to Hollywood, you might be matched with someone like that. You know, it's really worth the risk. But the other thing that the fee is for is not only us manually matching you, but it's for you to use that service for free. Because, you know, we do keep it all up and running. Now, eventually, once everything is automated, then there will be a fee for the service to chat with people. Not anybody that's like grandfathered in beforehand. So if you submit this week or next week, and then we add the, you know, fees for the service, you will be grandfathered in. So you'll just pay a one-time fee. But once everything's all up and automated, you will have to pay like $20 more to be able to actually chat with people, you know, kind of like Match.com type stuff. So do get in now. Do let people know. It's expanding. It is growing. You know, the money that the revenue that is coming in from it is what I'm using to, you know, pay the developers to do the automation process. So with that being said, you know, it's a good time to get in. And anyways, so I don't know if I'm going to make it through all of these today, but we're going to just start with Pluto and Aries, Pluto in the first house. So, or with Pluto moving into Aquarius. So, okay, I guess I didn't think that through, because I'm saying through the sense. Pluto will be in Aquarius. So if your first house, your ascendant, is in Aquarius through the 12th house, is what I was trying to say at the intro of the video. So I hope I didn't lose any of you there. Gotta hide the label. Okay, so if Pluto is moving onto your ascendant into your first house in Aquarius, you know, again, we're dealing with themes, technology, social networking, but the first house in the ascendant is your identity and your physical body and your first impressions. So you're going to be going through a lot of transformations. Pluto rules the 8th house of death, sex, taxes, transformation. So you may, you know, become a lot more physically attractive or mysterious to people because, you know, Scorpio 8th house Plutonic stuff is very mysterious. You might start having people come up to you and saying, wow, you're so mysterious all of a sudden. And then thinking, wow, you're so intelligent at the same time, with Pluto being, you know, on your ascendant in Aquarius in the first house. You may have a lot of innovative technological ideas come to you. You may end up quitting some mundane job and starting to really get into technology and AI and things like that. It's your physical body. So, you know, for some of you, this might be more likely if it's your first house. Like, you may be called, and this could be the 5th house too, to use your physical body to help advance technology. Whether that be like, you might be someone who has some sort of disability and they want to, you know, implant something in you. Now, I heed you with caution with that, you know, to each their own. But, or you might be someone who, you know, if you're in the entertainment industry, they want to, you know, use you for AI generation and stunts. And so you really could be called at this time in whatever career field you're in. And, you know, it doesn't really have to do with career first house, but you may just, your physical body is going to be a part of technological innovation along with your identity. So for some of you, it could be something like what I do, where I work online with clients all the time. Something that comes up for you where you could literally, sorry, I got a phone call. You could literally go from working in an office space to working remote. Okay. Now let's get into the second house. So if Pluto is moving into your second house in Aquarius, Pluto in the second house, first of all, if you have it natally, which I do, and you know, a lot of millionaires and billionaires do, like Bill Gates, it's Pluto natally in the second house is one of extraordinary poverty or wealth. And usually you start at the very bottom, and it has a lot to do with, especially being in Scorpio for the Pluto and Scorpio generation, a lot to do with using your own resources and materials, because second house is very material. It's Taurus's traditional house. So in Aquarius, you are going to be able to generate wealth through technology, and it's going to be in ways you never thought of before. And you may literally have to, again, kind of like I mentioned with the first house, but much more for you with Pluto moving into your second house in Aquarius, if this is the case, you may have to literally end a whole entire career, or you may have to like stop investing or cut off certain things that you're very invested in. And this is going to bring you like to take on technological opportunities. Like I said, you could go into working in, you know, working completely remote and things like that. Now, the reason I said that with the first house is because your body would be more absorbed in the technology, so you wouldn't actually have to go anywhere. Or if it's in your first house, you know, do watch through, because I will jump back and forth between the houses as I have these thoughts. Your first house, it could be like you work at a news station or something too, like your identity. Aquarius rules 11th house of networks and TV, so you might get called to all of a sudden out of nowhere, when you were doing something completely else, be on a TV show, you know. Okay, so second house though could be the same, because it's still Aquarius that we're dealing with, and so you could start to generate revenue, more revenue, if Pluto's moving into your second house, through YouTube channels and networks and social networking, and also friend circles is Aquarius. So for if it's moving into your second house, you know, do be very open and to innovative opportunities that come your way as far as money, finances, and income. Also, your voice could be transformed at this time. So if you are into singing or anything like that, or public speaking, you could be very influential. Just make sure that you are very clear and direct about your message, and you're speaking the truth, because it's Pluto rules the 8th house of secrets and truths as well, and the occult knowledge. So for some of you, if Pluto's moving into your 2nd house, you could be called like to do a YouTube channel on occult wisdom, like astrology and tarot. That could be very prevalent for you, or something like that, or something that's not well-known knowledge. So if you're thinking of ways to make money with Pluto moving into your 2nd house, you might want to look for those little niches of, like, you Google something and Google doesn't have the answer, which has happened to me a handful of times, but I know it's very rare. You go get a book on it, and then you could make a YouTube channel just solely centered around that occult subject that, isn't quite out there. So, and that might come to you just through the network of Aquarius, just from talking to people. There's this great quote that I read once from an astrologist. His name's Rob Bresney, and he writes a lot of the astrology columns. Now I think he's primarily online, but he used to write the horoscopes for the local newspaper where I'm from. And he once said, one of his analogies, because he has great analogies and he uses history and different, resources. He said, everything you need to know you can learn by word of mouth. So if you just getting that for if Pluto's moving into your 2nd house in Aquarius, like, do be tapped into what people are telling you, because it really could lead to some wealth and financial gain for you at this time. Or any aspects to that, like if you are, a Libra or Gemini sun, or have prominent placements and they're aspecting this Pluto Aquarius in your 2nd house, do look to those houses as well for money generating opportunities. Also, the 2nd house is trining your 6th and your 12th, which may or may not be in Libra or Gemini, because your 2nd house is in Aquarius. I mean, it could be, slightly off if we're doing Placidus. So, anyways, you can always, if you want a reading from me to dig more into that, if that's the case, go to rotation411.com. We can go over your birth chart, and I can, and in the transits, and I can really look into that for you, okay? I can spend a whole hour on it for you, giving you tips and cures and things like that. So moving into the 3rd house, if he's moving into your 3rd house, one second, I'm going to mute this if I remember how. Okay, so now I was working on some technological stuff today, and I'm getting an email back, and I'm getting calls from LA right as I'm talking about that project that I worked on. The director just called me, and I don't know if he watches my YouTube channel or not. He knows the name, but hey, if you're watching, okay. So 3rd house, okay, 3rd house is communication. It's Gemini's house, so it rules locality, short distance travel. So you may find if, it's a really nice spot to have Aquarius, the 3rd house, because it is traditionally ruled by Gemini, which is very complementary. So if Pluto's moving into your 3rd house, you're going to go through a lot of transformations. You might move to a neighborhood, a new community. You might become very powerful within your community. Now, that was kind of what I was getting at with like truth and occult, is Pluto rules truth. Like Scorpios see the truth of things. They just see right through it, very clear cut. Water signs are very intuitive, and Scorpio is known for seeing the truth of the matter, the heart of the matter. You could tell a Scorpio a bunch of fluff, and they're going to see right through you. So, that is a double-edged sword, especially in an air sign, which is swords. So do be careful at this time in the 3rd house of communication if Pluto is moving in there, or even the 2nd house, because Pluto in the 2nd house can sometimes, and especially the 8th, denote like underground ways of making money that aren't always up to par with legality things, depending on how Jupiter is aspected in your birth chart. So do make sure that you are moving with integrity, especially in the 2nd and the 3rd house. So the 2nd house, when it comes to how you're making money, because it will be broadcast. And the 3rd house, when it comes to how you're communicating with people, make sure that you're being very impeccable with your word, which is something that I've really had to think about lately. And, I love that book, The 4 Agreements. So if Pluto is moving into your 3rd house at this time, I would really recommend that you read that book by Dr. So I'm not sure why that just clicked off, and I hope it's picking up where it left off. I feel like it had been more than 12 minutes, and that's what's on the counter now. But basically, back to what I was saying is, just to summarize really quickly, Aquarius is swords, which is communication. So especially in your 3rd house, you're going to have to be very impeccable with your word. I highly recommend you look into the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. One of the 4 agreements is to be impeccable with your word. Me, with a lot of Gemini in my chart, I've definitely had to think about that lately more than usual. So You know, in the second house, when it comes to making money, make sure you're moving with integrity, that your thoughts, words, and actions align. And also controlling our emotions, because Pluto is, you know, rules Scorpio water sign. So these have been like the real lessons for me coming up, and Pluto hasn't even moved into Aquarius yet, but it's like being in control of your emotions, being impeccable with your word are going to be very vital at this time with any Pluto and Aquarius placement. Okay. So going into the fourth house, we have Pluto in the home. Now, this is where he's been for me for the past 20 years. And let me tell you, it's been a joy. And he's going to be there for another couple years, but it'll be a different flavor because I had him in Capricorn all these years. And Capricorn's all about hard work, and, you know, there's no reward without sacrifice. And also, you know, again, Pluto can have to deal with extreme poverty and extreme wealth. So when that comes to the home, I'm just hoping that this, you know, all these dream homes I've been manifesting for the past 10, 20 years may come to fruition now that I did all the hard work of Pluto being in Capricorn on my IC. And I lived in some pretty, some circumstances that, you know, I always thought of it as that quote they say, like for entrepreneurs, like you have to live a few years like other people won't, so that you can live the rest of your life like other people can't. So I'm hoping that Pluto and Aquarius in the fourth house might start to bestow those sort of blessings on me. But as he, again, moves into my fifth house, that'll be quite interesting. But I do March through May of last year, things were pretty good. But it's hard to remember because that's a pretty brief window. And like I said, there was a lot of changes. So if he's moving into your IC fourth house in Aquarius, it won't be as bad as it was for me with him in a Capricorn on the IC, but you will definitely have a lot of transformations when it comes to your home, your living environment, your stability, your private life. And it may be that your private life becomes quite public. So for some of you that are influencers and things like that, you know, you may rise to fame. And it seems backwards to be on the IC, because Pluto will be, you know, exposing you with that Aquarius 11th house energy. Now, another thing that I hadn't mentioned before, which is why I do recommend that you watch it all the way through as much as you can, is Aquarius rules wish fulfillment. That's our dreams come true. Like if somebody has a planet in your 11th house, they very much have the components of your dream person. And you may not even be able to make it work if it's not balanced, because they may seem too good to be true. So when we have your IC in Aquarius, you may kind of, what I was just kind of rambling about is you may manifest your like dream home or something. You know, I've seen people do it. I've done it with different, you know, apartments and stuff that I wanted to rent. So you may, and places that I wanted to live, like cities. So you may be able to do that at this time, okay? Or whatever you have been manifesting as far as your home life may come to fruition. So if for the last 3 years you've been down in the dumps and hating your living environment, you might want to write down on a piece of paper a list of, and I love this exercise because I've manifested, like I said, several places to live this way. You know, I do have Neptune there as well, which is a good manifestation energy natally. But you might want to take out a piece of paper and write a list. Like, I want a sliding glass door. I want, you know, I want a garage. I want, you know, I want it to be where it only doesn't cost me more than a quarter of my income in rent or mortgage. You know what I mean? Write those things down now, as Pluto is moving into Aquarius if he's on your IC. Okay, you guys? I'm glad it let me resume, because sometimes when it kicks out, it doesn't let me resume. Okay, so I don't know if I'm gonna make it through all 12 signs today, you guys, but I've just been having trouble getting inspired to get on here lately. So, you know, if we have to do, maybe we'll just go through 6 today, and then that way you guys can follow up with me tomorrow and we can go through more. Hey, Vis, thanks for joining me. I know it's been a while. I hope you had a very happy new year and holidays. So Pluto going into the 5th house, so this will be interesting. You know, 5th house rules creativity, children, the performing arts. It can also have to do with fame with Leo, and of course Aquarius is the opposite of Leo. So this is where he'll be going for me in the next 2 years. Again, he's intercepted right now in the 4th. But so for those of you where Pluto's going into your 5th house, again, you know, the whole bottom hemisphere, which is the 1st through the 6th, rules your private life and your foundation, your stability. So for anybody who has these placements 1st through the 6th of Aquarius, with Pluto moving into it, especially if there's any like during the year when there's transits with the sun, you may get more exposure in these areas. So if you say you are sort of like a singer, but you only sing in the shower or you only record in the studio, especially second and fifth house, you may all of a sudden be called to be more public or get, your demo heard. So he's definitely Aquarius in the bottom hemisphere with Pluto going through, might force you out of your comfort zone because Pluto is death and transformation. But he is also a very reclusive planet. So there's going to be times where you just need to really withdraw. And in Aquarius, it will be interesting. So Pluto in the fifth house in Aquarius might bring, like I had mentioned for myself, it might bring you children if you were not fertile before. If you are very fertile, it might be the time where you're done having children. There could definitely be transformations as regards with children in the fifth house. Also performing arts again, you might get into kind of a dark transformative space and explore parts of yourself and your abilities and really hone and craft your talents. If you are very out with your talents, and fifth house is also sports. So if you're an athlete, it might be a time where you have downtime, where you really do work on, like I remember hearing this story about Michael Jackson where, after he was like a child performing artist, and he was a Virgo, so I'm sure he had a hermit sometimes anyways. I'm pretty sure he's a Virgo or he has a strong Virgo placement. He just really hid in like in his studio by himself and produced a lot of his music from the whole world. So if Pluto's moving into the fifth house in Aquarius, if you are normally very extroverted, there might be, you might be really able to focus. Another quote that I love, and I guess I'm just coming out with these today, is who is focused is more powerful than millions that are distracted. So that would be the motto that I would tell you if Pluto's in your fifth house and you are very creative, if he's transiting your fifth house in Aquarius and you are a very creative person, because Aquarius is going to bring a lot of attention to this. So the more focused you can be in your private life, working on your crafts, your sports, your disciplines, the more attention will be drawn to you. And so it's almost like the opposite. Like if you really, really want attention, you might be forced to go and focus. In the sixth house, Pluto moving into the sixth house in Aquarius. And I think this is where I'm going to pause today, even though you guys are finally joining me, but maybe we could do a Q&A. So I'm going to finish with the sixth house. We'll come back tomorrow around this time, and we'll go through houses 7 through 12 with Pluto moving into Aquarius, because it's happening January 20th, if you didn't catch that. He's been in Capricorn for the past 20 years. He retrograded back into Capricorn, so he was briefly in Aquarius May through March. I'm just kind of summarizing for those of you joining. And so we could do a quick Q&A if you want to ask me anything or you want me to pull a card before I go. I have my tarot deck here handy as always, but I think we'll wrap it up with the sixth house. So Pluto in the sixth house in Aquarius, if he's transiting there for you, he will be there for the next 20 years. I believe it's 20 years. I heard that, but I always have to double check those kind of things because, I don't feel like Pluto Scorpio generation was 20 years, but I don't know. I know it was at least 10. I think it's like 1984 through 1994. So I could be wrong about the 20-year thing. Because then we already had to do Sagittarius and then Capricorn. So I think it's every 10 years. But, you guys got to be careful what you hear. Like, I was watching one TikTok video and she was like, Venus is going to be in Leo, so that's good for all the fixed signs. And it's like, no, it's not. That's not good for Scorpio or Taurus. That's squaring Scorpio and Taurus, 11th house. Okay, well, I might have to touch on that really quick, but I did say, the fifth house, which we were just talking about, the opposite of that is the 11th. So you must have a natural chart if Pluto's moving into your 11th house in Aquarius. So for you, this will probably be the most comfortable for those of you that, have an Aries rising or a natural chart or 11th house in Aquarius. Yeah, I might be wrong on that. And, you'd think it'd be easy for me to just pull it up, but I actually have to look at my software, I'm sure. Because, yeah, but anyways, and I do have a little chart that tells me how long he's in each planets in each sign, but when I'm going live, I got to keep going because if I pause and look that up, I'll kind of, get lost here. But anyway, so So in the 11th, it's probably going to be the most natural transformation. So I'll just skip to the 11th really quick, then we'll go back to the 6th, and then tomorrow we can touch on the 11th a little more. But it's probably going to be the most natural form of transformation because it's probably going to be already the themes that you're dealing with in the 11th house. And depending what planets you have there, that Pluto is going to bring transformation to. So you may have, it may be like one of my favorite analogies is you may feel like for a time that, and depending on the transits and the aspects that, you know, it's kind of like a slingshot pulling back on you. Pluto might force you to kind of go introspective for a little while, and then slingshot you forward into like that Aquarius spotlight. You're definitely going to be thinking about humanity and how to make changes in the world. And you may be doing that from sort of an occult place because as much as like Pluto in the 8th house is the occult, 11th house often rules astrology, Aquarius as well. So Pluto in the transit in your 8th house, if you don't have him natally there, is definitely going to bring you a lot of occult wisdom and knowledge and insight on how to help humanity as a whole. And it could bring you, if you already have a lot of occult wisdom and knowledge and do things like that, it's going to bring you downloads, but it's also, it might bring people to you, people and networks to, that you will have that occult knowledge to help them. Oh, okay, so he's going to be transiting your moon in the next few years. So that's interesting. That could bring a lot of emotional transformation for you, especially in the 11th house. You may find after the next 5 years or so that, you know, emotionally, again, I had mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were here for it, Avis, but because Pluto rules emotions and stuff, it's going to have a lot to do with not only like the double-edged sword, like the Ace of Swords, with ruling our tongue and our mind and having a lot of integrity and having our mind, heart, and emotions all in alignment, but it's also going to have to do with controlling our emotions and watching our tongue. So going over your moon, you may have a whole different perspective on your emotions and life. And moon rules the home. So depending what your 4th house is in would be, if you have a natural chart, would be Cancer, you know, yeah, that'll be really interesting. Laura, oh, it's going into your 8th. So I was going to stop at the 6th today, but now you all have the, you know, northern hemisphere charts with Pluto and Aquarius. So yeah, again, it's sort of going to be a similar theme with the 8th house. I've kind of been talking about, because Pluto traditionally rules the 8th house. So if he's transiting into your 8th house, the 8th house rules sex, death, taxes, but it also rules other people's money. So and it rules death. Like I just said, now I'm tripping over my tongue, you guys. It could bring you, Laura, some inheritances. I hope I'm not like yelling in the mic. I'm getting so excited, you guys. Inheritances, more power when it comes to other people's money. So it would be really good. I don't know what your career field is, Laura, but like if you are a financial advisor or something like that, you know, it could be very profitable for you during this time because you'll have more power in that. If you're not a financial advisor, you know, you might want to look into a part-time job doing taxes or that. Or even with it being an Aquarius, it could be, say you're, it could be advertising or marketing, because that's also Aquarius theme, for some sort of financial or marketing company. But definitely you may get one during this time. Or something to do with other people's money, investors, especially if you have any ideas to do with nonprofits or social networking like Aquarius themes or technology. So definitely those kind of things. They're very different themes, Aquarius and Pluto, but in the 8th house. And oh, that was what I was saying, kind of going back to what I was telling Avis about the occult knowledge and wisdom that you will have with Pluto going into the 11th. It's going to be very much the same with Pluto going into the 8th in Aquarius, right? Because the 11th is Aquarius's house, so that's its natural ruler, but Pluto naturally rules the 8th. So it's very much what I was just telling Avis also about occult knowledge, helping humanity, having ideas and inspiration to do that, using, you know, those different themes of like humanity as a whole, but then, you know, wisdom that people don't know together. So you two are two people, and obviously if you're on my channel watching about astrology in depth, you're going to be able to really help humanity at this time, and it might be very profitable for you, especially in the 8th house. And in the 11th, you might get a lot of exposure or be known for this. So going back to the 6th house is work. work and daily tasks, you know, the routine, mundane. It's Virgo's traditional house. It might not be the most comfortable place during this time to have Pluto, honestly, you guys. Depending where Pluto is natally, like if he's normally in your second or your 10th in sort of like a earth sign or a career earth house, it might be more comfortable for you having Pluto move into your sixth house. But I would say that's going to be one of the less comfortable placements to have Pluto in Aquarius moving through your sixth house. It's definitely going to change your daily routine. You might find that it's very hard, especially if you are an earth sign that really, or have strong earth placement that really thrives on routine. Your routine might get shaken up quite a bit. You might have to really learn to be adaptable and like tap into your water energy. I hate to be like, you know, lean towards a negative thing, but I do feel like Pluto moving through the sixth house is going to be one of the more challenging placements for Aquarius. But if you're already, you know, if your sixth house is in Aquarius, you may already be in technology and innovation. So really focus on innovating and changing things and sparking new ideas. Like my advice for you guys with Pluto transiting in your sixth house in Aquarius would be, you know, to write, even if you're not in a career field like this, which you probably would be in some sort of social networking, TV type broadcasting or technology career with Aquarius, or it could even be mathematics and stuff. I would say to write down like especially right before we move into it, an inspiration list of like ideas that you have. Like I was just kind of looking back into the coding for divinetimingdatabase.org. You know, we want to automate it so where you can put your birth info in and you click it and all of a sudden you're matched. You know what I mean? Kind of like the other dating sites. So it's like you don't have to go pay and wait for your match for me to manually do it, which by the way, there are more and more and more people in there now. So I have been very buried in matching you all manually. So if you have submitted to divinetimingdatabase.org waiting on a match, I may be too soon. I found a few hundred, and so anyways, it's been taking up a lot of my time, so I'm working on the actual technological part of it right now. So you might want to write an inspiration list like that, like I want to automate this thing, I want to be able, you know, an idea list, a technology idea list, even if you're not in an innovative field. But if you're Aquarius sixth house, you probably are somewhat into some sort of technology field. And if you're not, you know, you should have had your birth chart done already. And if you want it done, rotation411.com. But I see one of you still in here. So if you want to give me a shout out, you know, I'm going to still pick up tomorrow with 7th through the 12th because I don't want to burn myself out. I want to be getting on here live all the time. And that'll give me something to look forward to talk to you guys about tomorrow. And also, as always, if you're watching this on the playback, please do comment about anything you'd like me to touch on. Sometimes a lot of the time I'm in hermit mode, just analyzing, thinking about all these things. And I don't always like to come out and talk about anything. Sometimes, you know, I'm a very mix of earth, air, water, and fire. I think we've talked about that before. So I go from being introverted to extroverted. So sometimes I have plenty of ideas on my own, and sometimes, you know, if you guys have anything you want me to talk about on the lives, I really want to be consistent and get on here. My apologies for the break over the holidays. There was just so much going on. So I'm sending you all lots of love, blessing, and light as always. I better click off here before I get kicked out. Oh, okay. Oh, it's in your 7th house natally. You know, that can be very challenging. I had a client who was getting divorced, and depending on how it's aspected, Avis, that can be very challenging when it comes to your partner or your spouse. You know, I have a Rahu in the 7th house, the North Node, which I'm having my return right now. And I had talked about this a little, I think, before, but I had a client a few weeks ago, like planets like Pluto and Rahu in the 7th can bring in a lot of snakes and a lot of deceivers, depending on how it's aspected. If you have a natural chart, so this is going to be happening in Libra. That's not the worst place for Pluto to be, honestly. Definitely you find transformations through relationships. You definitely help people to grow. Sometimes you have to release them, which is disappointing, you know, because you come in and you help them grow and then you have to release them. But Pluto is also a very stable, it's weird because I think of Pluto as a very stable energy, even though he brings shakeups. He is the Tower in tarot. He rules the Tower and Judgment. You know, some tarot readers say it's Aries and Scorpio energy, but I do believe it's actually Pluto is the tower. I might be mixing up with judgment. I mean, you see different ways they categorize these things, and you always have to interpret when you're reading. But so yeah, Pluto in the 7th house. Because Scorpio is so family oriented and tends to do fairly well in long-term relationships, even enduring a lot of BS sometimes. I feel like Pluto in the 7th house, you're not quite like a martyr, but you can endure a lot. So you have to be careful that, you know, you're not enabling. You wouldn't enable in like a Pisces way. You're a very strong partner, and you have to be careful that, you know, you're not enduring more than you really should be, I guess. But that's natally, you guys. That's not the transit. We'll pick up tomorrow with Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th. So yeah, I'm going to go for now, you guys, but I will be on around 3 or 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This was such a good little run, and so I don't want it to click off or anything, but thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Avis and Laura. And again, if you guys think of anything, just write it in the comments in the playback, and I will touch on it Friday or Monday. All right, sending you lots of love and light and Happy New Year. And I'm looking forward to going through this Pluto and Aquarius transit with you all. All right, bye.